Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. When the 61-year-old VK Shashikala is sworn in as the new Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu this week, she will be the third woman to hold the state's top political job. But whether she will have a long innings in office like her mentor, the late J. Jayalalitha, or a short one like Janaki Ramachandran will depend upon her ability to ensure the continuing loyalty of her party legislators. On Sunday afternoon, all 136 MLAs attending the ruling AIADMK party legislature meeting in Chennai lined up to unanimously choose her as Chief Minister. Shashikala's name was proposed by none other than the serving and now outgoing Chief Minister O. Pannirselvam. But Shashikala's show of strength amongst AIADMK legislators cannot hide the fact that the party's rank and file cadre and the wider public in the state do not approve of the manner in which the reins of government have been placed in Chinnamma's hands. On this edition of The Big Picture, we'll discuss the rise of VK Shashikala and the future of Tamil Nadu politics. Joining me on the program today are J. Sai Deepak, Advocate of the Delhi High Court, Ganapati Subramaniam, Chief of Bureau, Puthiya Thalaimurai, and also Sukumar Mullidharan, Senior Journalist, and Rakesh Bhattabyal, Associate Professor, JNU. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. I'd like to start with you, Sukumar Mullidharan. This was bound to happen, wasn't it? I mean, when Jayalalitha passed away in December, and then Shashikala was then later on anointed as the General Secretary of the party, many people came out and said that it was just about time before she becomes the Chief Minister.
Well, you couldn't say that it was bound to happen, but it just confirms the picture of Indian politics that we have, that there's very little tolerance for power sharing, for a diarchic system. You cannot have the ruling party under a leader who's not also occupying the ministerial chair, the chief ministerial chair. That is becoming increasingly the rule of Indian politics, both on national and the state levels. So you could say that it was just a matter of time, but then there was also an argument that discretion would prevail because there are certain legal troubles that Madam Shashikala is facing, in which one of which the Supreme Court is due to deliver its verdict on in a matter of days. The reserve judgment last June, and when Jayalalitha was critically ill and then subsequently passed away, there were lots of questions about why the Supreme Court was taking so inordinately long to deliver its verdict. So now it seems that the court verdict might come out in a matter of days, and there are a number of other legal travails that she's facing. So it seemed likely that she would allow that element of discretion to prevail and allow Pannirselvam to continue as Chief Minister. But obviously, the dynamics of politics at the local level, the kind of caste balance of power that has to be preserved to sustain the ruling party in power, these things have impelled Madam Shashikala into taking what seems to everybody a very, very precipitate step.
Indeed. Professor Bhattabyal, taking the point that Sukumar is making forward, do you believe that, Shashikala should have waited a little while longer? Was it too early for Chinnamma to take on the mantle of Amma?
Actually, the way the Indian politics has moved over the last 15 years or 20 years, if you remember Rabdi Devi episode, as Mr. Muralidharan was pointing out, the difference between a party head or ideologically party head and somebody who's occupying the chair is no longer tenable in politics. It seems so. And therefore, it was Sonia Gandhi Manmohan Singh arrangement. Now everybody actually is questioning that arrangement. In the sense that, politics is increasingly became patronage driven rather than ideologically driven politics. In that sense, when you are Chief Minister, you have you wield the power for all kinds, and that you don't do as a party head. And this is what is being shown again. So it's a kind of testimony to what has happened to Indian politics. Good, bad, that's a different matter. So therefore, Madam Shashikala would not have waited. In fact, this waiting of a month or whatever time elapsed itself was too long because of different reasons. So therefore, I won't give, I would argue on the line that it is too early or too late, but I think this has become essential, and that too in a politics of state where different dynamics prevail, and also a kind of because it is if the party has to go forward, The chief minister has to implement what are the ideological parameters that party had, and therefore it is incumbent on the chief minister or whoever is holding the party or wants to hold the party to become the chief minister to run those programs. In that kind of scenario, I think this is a very normal, we are making it exceptional, but it's become very normal in Indian politics because nobody wants to not hold the chair for too long.
Sure, indeed. Dhanapati Subramaniam, you know, we saw the tech-savvy people of Tamil Nadu take to social media yesterday when this decision was taken, and we saw several memes coming out yesterday, and they were visibly upset with this kind of an arrangement. Do you believe that Shashikala has, indeed, it looks like she has the support of the legislators, but for how long, and does she have the support of the general public?
More importantly, whether she has the support of the party cadre is also doubtful. She may have the support of the legislators because after Jayalalitha, they were totally clueless. They were always dependent on only one person, Jayalalitha, for all directions. When Jayalalitha was missing from the scene, they were clueless, and immediately in a herd mentality, people tend to take decisions at such occasions. And in this case, first they handed over the party power to Shashikala. Now they are ready to make her the chief minister also. But whether this will be acceptable to the cadre is doubtful, and whether this is acceptable to the voters is even more doubtful. So as we go down the pyramid, the resistance to Jayalalitha is more and more. And there are some people who say that usually there are people who are loud and who are voted to power. But in this case, a person who is being now taken to power is a person who seems to evoke more hate than any love at all. That's a very strange situation. And that is where the starting point itself is going to become a roadblock for Shashikala. And many people also see the same situation as in the case of Janaki. When Janaki was forced into power after MGR's death, and what happened finally? People did not accept Janaki. Jayalalitha became the real Jayalalitha AIDMK icon after MGR, and she was the successor to MGR. Like that, today also there is a situation where somebody else could emerge as the real successor to MGR and Jayalalitha legacy.
Indeed. J. Sai Deepak, I'd like to bring you in because there's a constitutional requirement that Shashikala has to fulfill as well. She has to win, an election and to continue as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. So that's the first stumbling block that she has to clear.
Right. See, the thing is, in terms of the timing of the decision, I would have at least expected Ms. Shashikala to put this decision on hold for a good reason, because I think the matter was mentioned in the Supreme Court yesterday by one of the senior counsels in the matter, and the court has anyway indicated that the decision can be expected any time in a week. So perhaps after having got that indication, at least they could have put this thing on hold. God knows what is the sequence of events, for the simple reason that, let's assume for a moment that the decision is unfavorable to Ms. Shashikala. What happens to the position of the Chief Minister, who will be at the helm? And while Mr. Paneerselvam has already played the role of a placeholder Chief Minister for at least 3 or 4 times, and he seems to be fairly good at the job, and he's made sure that there is at least a sense of stability as long as he's been in the position. What happens if, let's say, she is convicted? I mean, we don't know. It could go either ways. That's one. 2, assume for a moment that the decision goes in her favor. Even then, under Article 164(4) of the Constitution, if my memory serves it right, I think she will be required to contest elections within a period of 6 months, because you cannot be a minister unless and until within 6 months you're a member of the legislature, so on and so forth. So there are requirements there as well. So I think the timing of the decision is slightly odd in that particular sense. And 2, there's also the another angle that if the placeholder Chief Minister continues to remain in the position and manages to give the distinct impression that he is perhaps good at administration and is capable of taking over the reins, that could have perhaps been one of the considerations that went into the timing of this particular decision. And be that as it may, I think it's too early to write someone off as being inexperienced, because you never know. Because when Ms. Jayalalitha was brought to the position of a Chief Minister, she did not have too much of experience except for the fact that she had proven her credentials as an auditor with her oratorical skills and so on and so forth, but not too much of administrative experience at that point of time. So I wouldn't necessarily look at it from an experience standpoint, simply because there have been instances in this country where the position of the Prime Minister has been held by someone who wasn't elected. So I think it's a question of wait and watch.
Indeed, it is a question of wait and watch, and we'll have to wait and see. But Shashikala, for the time being at least, Sukumar Muralidharan has got 4 years, and that's a good thing for her to prove her mettle and prove what she can do over the next 4 years or so.
Yes, time is in her favor. She's got 4 years in which she can grow into the job if she has the opportunity to. Now we have to wait for the Supreme Court verdict next week, which could be as early as next week, to see if she will be given that opportunity. But there's also a negative side to this, which is that the task of keeping together the flock and to re-engineer the composition of the Legislative Assembly in accordance with her own kind of political preferences, she'll have to wait 4 years for that. So, there are both a positive and a negative side to that. So, what is mitigating factor for her is that she was very much involved with the political management of the ADMK while Jayalalitha was the undisputed leader. What militates against her chances is that she's got no experience in administration. Now, Tamil Nadu is a well administered state with very well established welfare schemes and so on, which are big vote catchers. Jayalalitha herself has implemented several of these schemes. Every party, irrespective of who is in power, has felt compelled to sustain these schemes. The bureaucracy is a functioning bureaucracy. Jayalalitha made certain smart decisions in terms of delegation of authority to the bureaucracy. If she continues on those lines, she will be the winner. But what could stand in the way is a very vast family circle. She has a very vast family circle, which she's brought from her home village in Mannargudi in Tanjavur district, and they will all be clamoring for a share in the action. And that could possibly be an impediment to administering the state efficiently and well.
One more thing, Ganapati, that's in her favor is that she represents the very strong Tevar community, and that too will work. Will that work in her advantage, do you think?
See, right now all the party leaders, irrespective of their caste, they are all supporting her. Of course, the Tevar community will support her. But you cannot win an election in Tamil Nadu on the basis of support of Tevar community only. If you do it too much, then all the other communities, dominant communities, will go against you. And this election was won by AIDMK because people voted for Jayalalitha. They did not vote for Shashikala, they did not vote for anybody. So therefore, whether the same people who voted for Jayalalitha but accepted Panneerselvam as a stopgap arrangement and now are being made to face Shashikala, will they vote for Shashikala? That is the big question. Whether Shashikala can win elections under her leadership, whether she can become a vote catcher, that is a big thing, because it is something which she is not used to. Even administration people may help her, but in getting votes from people, in making an appeal to the voters, you have to be charismatic, which Jayalalitha was. Whether Shashikala can do the same, it's a big question of doubt.
Indeed. Professor Bhattabyal will have to spare a thought for O. Panneerselvam as well, because he's been sworn in as Chief Minister thrice and he has resigned thrice as well, and for no real mistake of his.
Grace is the thing that is missing from Indian politics and Indian society. So let us give him that point. I think he has scored the highest point in today's India. The graceful coming and graceful exit. But we had people like Gulzarilal Nanda and others, who in fact warm your seat for somebody else. But I must want to come in. It's not about Shashikala is going to get votes or not. Also, there are dynamics of politics which is national, and the fight is about the space also. It's not just Shashikala is trying to be there, but also as a party must have sensed that they're fighting also to keep the legacy of Amma, and therefore a women chief minister is the best bet to keep that legacy. Because don't forget, the two national parties are also eyeing for the space that they could carve out of the AIDMK Jayalalitha's demise, and they might come in a different way. So now Shashikala's the tryst will be to actually not just manage the local politics, but also to negotiate the spaces that she requires or for her party vis-a-vis the two national parties, and primarily BJP, which is trying very hard to get into get a foothold in Maybe Shashikala, we don't know the internal arrangement. Maybe they have some kind of tough battle happening already, and that might have catapulted her to take the reign early. So this is how the Indian politics in a state is turning out to be in a time when the whole Indian politics is getting fragmented of a different kind, when there's a larger ideological battles are being fought at the central level.
Indeed. Sai Deepak, what are the biggest complications do you see along the way for Shashikala?
See, there are actually two issues, and I want to build on one of the points that was made originally in this debate, which is, see, while it certainly seems good for democracy that there is someone who helms the party and there is someone who helms the government, it is much better for someone to come out of the shadows and say that I'd like to be in charge of both, as opposed to someone who chooses to stay behind the scenes and pulls the strings, giving the distinct impression that they are not interested in power while all the time wielding power. So I think in contrast to, or as opposed to that kind of hypocrisy, this is a much better situation. That's one. Be that as it may, I think while politics is very important, what is perhaps more important is governance and administration. And that's a question that the government has to think, for the simple reason that they have 4 years, and while they have time on their side, the last few months and particularly the last 2.5 to 3 years have been very, very tumultuous for the state of Tamil Nadu. Starting from the power problem that plagued it for at least 2 to 3 years, which affected the manufacturing sector, the industrial sector, therefore employment went down. Chennai, which was known as the Detroit of India or South India, took a serious hit, so that happened. So when they brought it back on track thanks to the nuclear power plant being initiated or inaugurated, you then had the Kaveri issue. Then you had the floods, and this time you had the cyclone, which means with a good number of trees in Chennai and all these places being wiped out, they are going to face the brunt of summer. So to actually paraphrase a certain popular dialogue, summer is coming for Chennai, and that's going to be really, really problematic. So while they can keep wrangling among themselves as to who's going to be in charge and who's going to be in power, they really have to address some serious concerns. And on that particular front, I think you have to give some serious credit to Mr. Paneerselvam for ensuring that there was not just relative calm, there was more than a sense of calm and stability in the state after the demise of Ms. Jayalalitha. And for also ensuring that the Jallikattu protests by and large were very, very peaceful, and for bringing some kind of closure to that particular issue through the legislative mechanism. So you have to give credit to him for that. And hopefully, I would, at least as a common citizen, I think one would expect whoever is finally the Chief Minister, becomes the Chief Minister and remains the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, pays more attention to the fact that the state has a history of being welcoming to foreign investors and investors from around the country. And the common statement that's always been made about the state is, regardless of whichever regime is in power, it's easy to deal with the state of Tamil Nadu from the standpoint of establishing business. And in October 2016, the rankings of in ease of doing business, from 12th it came down to 18th. Tamil Nadu ranks behind Bihar, and it's got about 62.8% on the overall ranking. So these are things that they have to consider. Water, jobs, remaining high on the ease of doing business rankings. They also have ranked pretty well on urban sector reforms, and they'll have to sustain it. And that cannot happen as long as politics remains the focus of her attention as opposed to administration and governance. So that's what I think that's her job cut out for her.
Indeed, that's a very valid point that you're making, Sukumar. Politics needs to take a back seat and administration needs to come to the forefront, at least for the next few months or so. Like he pointed out, he said summer is coming, and many districts in Tamil Nadu are already facing drought-like conditions at the moment. So these are some of the administrative challenges that she has to deal with at the earliest.
Absolutely. Tamil Nadu, I doubt if you could say that administration has been a serious bottleneck there, because among the states of the union, it is relatively better placed in terms of the administration efficiency of the bureaucracy. The issue here is that over time, some of the sheen has worn off, and that's the case with several of our states which boasted of amazing strides in industrialization and emerging at the frontier of information technology, automobile sector, and so on, have had problems maintaining the kind of social concord which contributes to that economic progress. Look at Haryana, for instance, being torn apart by caste violence and so on. And Haryana was a showpiece state in terms of industrial development. So I think those kind of factors are coming into play in Tamil Nadu. And these are cyclical things, you know, there are times when everything is harmonious and people pull together in a spirit of cooperation. There are times when they compete with each other. Now, the challenge for Madam Shashikala would be in maintaining the kind of potential rivalries that could emerge in a situation in which the fruits of development are not, that abundant, and there are competing views about how these should be shared. And there are several, we always look at these things in terms of caste groupings. I mean, that's how we are kind of inured to looking at things in that way. And there is a element there of, a number of very politically very powerful caste groupings in Tamil Nadu, and whether she's maintaining the balance right will be a key test. Now, Tevar, the Tevar community you mentioned, is undoubtedly a very powerful community, but then the ADMK coalition, the broader political coalition, consists of several others. Like, the Kongu Vellalas, for instance, Mr. Thambidurai might feel hard done by in the whole transition of power, because he and Mr. Paneerselvan were expected to be the kind of
power centers.
The two power centers. Now he might feel that the Tevars are taking over that space exclusively for themselves. So those kind of challenges she'll have to manage, and if she's able to harmonize that with the kind of the challenges that she faces in terms of economic development, industrialization of the state, in terms of ensuring there's a perception that things are being fairly, that everybody's getting a fair share, then I think Tamil Nadu should re-emerge as among the more prosperous and well-administered states of this country. But these are not easy challenges.
Indeed.
And especially for a novice in politics, it's going to take a lot of learning.
Ganapathy Subramaniam, going forward, what is the relationship going to be like between the state of Tamil Nadu and the centre? We know that Jayalalitha had very strong views about certain aspects, for instance, the GST, she was strongly against it, whereas both Paneerselvam and Shashikala have been for it. So how is the relationship going to be going forward?
One, Jayalalitha had a very personal equation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That way, even though she had a lot of differences with the central government, at the same time, she could pick up the phone and speak to Narendra Modi as and when required. That was the situation. But right now, we don't know when Shashikala becomes the Chief Minister, will she have the stature to speak to Prime Minister or any of the senior central ministers, say Finance Minister or Home Minister, and push a case of Tamil Nadu as much as Jayalalitha used to do. And secondly, who are going to be her advisors? What will be her focus? These are all many unknown elements that we have. Secondly, when Jayalalitha tragically passed away, the BJP leaders declared very clearly that we don't have any problems with the AIDMK, we respect the elected leader. They kept on saying repeatedly that we respect the elected leader, mentioning Paneerselvam, who has been elected by the people of Tamil Nadu as a MLA. Now, Jayalalitha's mantle, when it passes on to Shashikala, will she contest in the same constituency which is being vacated because of Jayalalitha's death, or will she move to some other constituency? Whether the BJP will support her or leave her unopposed, there are many questions which are left in the open. But at the same time, DMK and the Congress are going to try their best to checkmate Shashikala. Remember, 2016 assembly election was a very closely fought election between AIDMK and DMK. So DMK is now itching to come back to power, and they will try their best to destabilize whichever new administration is put forward by Shashikala, whatever may be her cabinet composition, etc. Definitely, DMK will oppose them tooth and nail in the assembly and try to criticize them for every single policy. So Congress definitely will join DMK because they are alliance partners. So irrespective of the centre, the Shashikala administration will have a tough time politically.
Indeed. Professor Bhattapayal, the biggest threat to Shashikala comes from within or from outside?
I think both, but first challenge to her is the challenge of legitimacy. Because Jayalalitha could transcend all the boundaries, all the caste and community boundaries, or even the local political boundaries, and show herself as Mahatma Gandhi used to say, the best leader is the leader who becomes cipher. But here she is not the cipher; she is part of some of the groups. So therefore, the first question will be legitimacy, which I think people tackle that in their own way. The second will be because now, if the first time after a long time, DMK is a powerful opposition, and at the same time, Tamil Nadu is undergoing rural distress in some areas. Now, with the Trump ban on IT, what unfolds in Tamil Nadu, because Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad, and Bangalore are the three biggest centers. So that will also have some heartburn in Tamil Nadu in different ways, Chennai and others. So therefore, the employment and other stress will come, and there she will have a kind of visionary administrative, not what you learn at the side, but you have to be innovative at the side. And that will be the second biggest problem. That is internal. The second, the third is the national, the way powerful opposition within, and BJP, which will try its best to anchor itself in fact, it has already identified its own leaders to be countering whatever politics there. So therefore, and that will be not a very easy challenge, because BJP is not Congress. It doesn't have the leniency that other political party used to have on its levers. So it will use all its levers at its hand to take the pound of flesh that it wants. So therefore, she will be facing a different politics at the center, which very few political leaders in Tamil Nadu have faced over the last 50 years, because this is a different political organization itself.
Indeed. I've got time for one last comment on the program. J. Sai Deepak, I'd like you to give your concluding remarks.
See, one thing that I think Indian politics has a tendency is to surprise detractors and naysayers. So there's a decent chance that Ms. Shashikala may prove to be a great administrator or a fantastic politician. But the thing that we have to understand is, wielding power from behind or brokering power from behind the scenes is very, very different from actually coming to the fore and having to answer some serious questions. For me, again, while politics is very, very spicy and perhaps it's worthy of a great discussion, the only question that I have to ask myself as a common citizen is, will somebody learn administration governance at the expense of people's priorities and the expense of their time, particularly when the last few years have not been particularly great for the state of Tamil Nadu? So for me, I'd like to bring it back to the question of governance and administration. I just hope that even if she is new to administration or she has no clue of how to administer a state, she's at least open to suggestions from various groups and bureaucrats who know their job. As long as that happens, I think in the long run, maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, she'll understand how a state is supposed to be run.
Indeed.
So that's the priority for me.
Administration should be the priority and not politics. Of course, she has 4 years to sort out all the things within the party and within the state, but she has some very tough and challenging times ahead. That's all the time we have on this edition of The Big Picture. J. Sai Deepak, Ganapati Subramaniam, Sukumar Muralidharan and Rakesh Bhattabyal. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. See you again next time.